Hey there, good evening. It's about 6:30 p.m. It's just getting dark here. But I wanted to make a video. I made one earlier, and it's too long because I was trying to edit it and add captions on this new edits app. But it won't do that if it's over 10 minutes, so I'm going to try and shorten it a little bit and say it all over again because I didn't feel like editing out any of the words and make it look choppy. I don't like that. So, some years ago, I decided to start focusing on Tantra in my own practices. Now, Tantra doesn't mean I'm excusing and getting away from my Hatha Yoga practice. Hatha Yoga, which my Ashtanga practice, is my Hatha Yoga practice. Because Hatha Yoga is a Tantric practice. And I thought it could only help enhance the Tantric practices I was doing, Japam and Puja and stuff. And it does. And the more I do, the better it is. And then if I do too much some days and I'm doing too much japa, it's too much and I get overcharged energetically. So when I was explaining this to someone, I believe in Mysore, and it was about 1.5 years or 2 years ago, I decided, we were talking about it, and I decided to just kind of let them out with my ideas of all this stuff, which I had been keeping to myself because I was kind of culminating what it means to me. They said, if you do this, you should call it the Tantra of Ashtanga Yoga, which is wonderful and perfect. So now, perfect for what I'm kind of trying to describe, Hatha Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga as a Tantric practice, and then learning the deeper sides of that by using mantra, learning the energy of the practice. Because Ashtanga Yoga is all about getting the body in a place where the energy can flow. So you're trying to get rid of tightness, but you're trying to build strength where there's too much openness, and you're trying to create openness where there's not enough, where there's too much strength, because there has to be a balance, right? It has to be a balance between the two things. And when the body gets in balance and you can feel that, then you can start paying attention to the energetics of it. So that's why I teach Mula Bandha a lot, and I teach the pranayama, the breath, touching the Mula Bandha and using them in conjunction with one another so that we can learn to feel the energy that's flowing in and around this body that we live in. So these upcoming retreats that I've mentioned before that I'm working on with my friend here in St. Croix are going to be where people can come in a group, not a large group, 6 to 8 people. Probably 10 people could fit also, but they'd have to share a couple rooms because the space we're going to be in has a certain amount of rooms. Some of them have double beds, some of them have 2 beds that are double beds. So if people don't mind bunking up together, we could fit a little bit more. And I'm going to focus on teaching Ashtanga Yoga in the Mysore style, which I think is brilliant. So if you already are practicing that, then you know it. If you don't know that, you can learn it. I'll teach you that from the beginning. I'm an authorized teacher. So I'm allowed to do that. Even I was teaching it before I was allowed because my original teacher had told me to go ahead and teach. Nancy Gilgoff wasn't authorized to authorize me, but she told me to go home and teach. And Sharat told me to teach, to go home and teach and start a Mysore program before I was authorized. And after I was authorized and I was assisting him, he told me verbally I can teach intermediate series because I used to do intermediate series and third series. So I don't really feel blocked by not being a level 2 authorized teacher because I had verbal connection with Shrat for many years, and he made me feel confident in my teaching of that. And Nancy had told me originally to do the same, so it's okay. I don't need your approval to do it. But one thing I want to do is I want people to understand the energetics of the practice and the energy flow in and around the bodies, in and around the bodies, not just in the body, because the body is solid, and the energetic body surrounds it and encompasses it as well. Because I keep hearing from people, and I have a couple students that I know of who practice with me in person in North India and in a couple other places. but mostly people, students in India, who are practicing with other teachers online who are still keeping with that rigidity that Shrat used to have, about if you can't do the pose fully, whatever he determined is fully, then you have to stop there. Now, the one thing that people don't take into consideration is that he had a different idea of what a fullness of the pose was for each person. Everyone didn't have to catch the heels in Kapotasana. Everyone didn't have to grab their feet and do everything exactly perfectly, because he understood the energetics of it. And if you understand the energetics of it, like his grandfather used to let people go on, once they could get a version of a pose that was stable enough to hold the strength of the energy flow in that pose, then he'd let you move on. He didn't hold you at one place for a long time. In fact, if he could get you in a pose or into a version of the pose that was strong enough and stable enough, he would let you move on pretty quickly. Some people he moved very quickly, some people he moved very slowly. One guy who was back in the 80s, you hear tales of him being stuck at Mrichasana C for 7 years. And then, like, Nancy Gilgoff who was my original teacher, could barely do most of the poses, and yet in her first 6 months in 1973 did primary and intermediate, and Patabi helped her through every pose and helped her do every pose, helped her do dropbacks, helped her do everything, and he still let her move on, and she did fine until she died recently. She was still practicing. So the Tantra of Ashtanga Yoga, which would be the name of these retreats, it might also start being the name of my workshops, so that we can not focus on only the breath bandhas and the drishti, which I tend to call it breath bandhas and drishti. The Tantra of Ashtanga Yoga Tantra is a technique. It can also mean a thread, or to weave things together with that thread. Helping people tap into the bandhas and the breath and connecting them, finding the thread between them, and then getting that fullness of the energy flow with their practice, and then moving on to the next pose, moving on to the next thing, learning the pranayama sequence, whatever it is, moving on to japa, moving on to sitting more, moving on to getting deeper into the yoga practice, not just the asana practice, but the yoga practice. And so when I start to focus on this as my main idea, people are going to come and I want them to come and have a deeper experience. So these retreats that are going to be on St. Croix starting probably in July and August will be ready for them, are going to focus on that. So if you want to deepen your practice, if you want to do it in a beautiful location and come here and have experiences on the beach, the place we're going to be at has a pool. There's a rainforest on the island. There's 7 different climate zones on the island. There's a desert area, there's all sorts of things to do and see here. So you're going to come and have a yogic experience in your practices in the morning, but then you're also going to have discussions about all of these theories and all of these things and how you can learn to feel them. We're going to have practical practices, learning how to feel the energy. And then you're going to get to go on the island. We'll maybe do it on the beach one day. We'll take a ferry to Buck Island and, have a whole experience over there and include all of these teachings in the daily experience. So it's pretty interesting, and the idea of it excites me. And I'm not a terribly excitable person, but I love teaching this stuff, and I love sharing with people who already have a practice. And if you don't have a practice, I'd love to introduce the practice to you on this deeper level so you can enjoy life in a different way. So that's my idea. That's what I got. And I'm going to go and do some of my evening practices, mantra, japam, and hope you have a great evening also. I will talk to you soon. Hopefully see some of you soon. Ciao.